time to come out this morning. And of course, getting this close to an election, we've been right out straight. Different parts of the province, getting our message out, of course, trying to recruit candidates, get them lined up for the election, and trying to understand and really get a feel for the issues that we all face. Of course, we live here too, so we understand just by being here some of the issues that New Brunswick faces. The economy, of course, is a major one. Fiscal management by government is a major issue. The debt, the deficit, all of those sorts of things are very important and crucial to the future of New Brunswick. Over the next few weeks, we're going to be working with people within our party to develop a platform to be released to the public, one that will, consider fiscal responsibility with the needs of New Brunswickers and to cast a vision for the future of the province. So most of you here this morning, of course, being from the business community, you understand the struggles that each of you face in your day-to-day operations of building your business, growing the New Brunswick economy, and the challenges that are there with that, as well as the opportunities. The report that came out for March from Statistics Canada talked about in March the country had added 32,000 jobs in March, full-time positions, mostly full-time positions. The national unemployment rate was at about 5.8%, and that Canada as a whole during the previous year had added 296,000 jobs. So on a national level, you can see a lot of growth, a lot of potential, a lot of movement in terms of economic advancement. However, when you look at New Brunswick, it seems to be taking an opposite trend and not showing the optimism that we see on a national level. For example, in the same month of March, the same report indicated that 1,800 jobs were lost in the province, with 2,900 people leaving the workforce. So, it begs the question that I ask myself and that we ask ourselves as a party is, why is it that the nation is growing exponentially, but at the same time our province in this corner of the country is declining, and in many areas? And we looked at areas of the country that is showing growth, and we looked at areas like Saskatchewan. And Saskatchewan is a thriving province. It has a thriving, growing economy, and I believe it's based on several factors. It's diversity in the economy, low taxes, less regulation, and a skilled workforce. I think all play a part in Saskatchewan's success. And it's always our job as a political party to find, I find a lot of times with these things, you don't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel here. You simply have to look at other jurisdictions that are seeing success and try to mirror some of the things that they are doing while making our own economy unique to us. Like, what can we do here that maybe they can't do in Saskatchewan that would give us a benefit? And what do we have to stop doing here in New Brunswick that other jurisdictions are not doing to see the kind of growth that we want to see here at home? So, as such, we're constantly working, and of course in the last couple years we've come out with ideas that will be in our platform, things that we want to see that will grow the economy. So this morning I'm just going to name 4 main things that we're looking at. Some we have already committed to, others we're kind of kicking the tires on to see how it would work and to make sure that it fiscally makes sense in terms of government revenue, but also that it would grow the economy and help businesses as well, because at the end of the day, it is small and medium business that really drives the economy here in New Brunswick. And we know the statistics will show that it is small, medium business that keeps New Brunswick going. And of course, we want to see industry and resource development and that sort of thing in the province as well to keep New Brunswick moving forward in all aspects. It's all about diversity in the economy. So the first thing that we've come out with, which was actually part of our platform last election, was the elimination of the small business tax. And the thinking behind the elimination of the small business tax is, first of all, it's a very small amount of revenue that is brought into the province of New Brunswick. And when you equate what is brought in now, the numbers we had in 2014 in the election, it was roughly $9 million that was brought in through the small business tax. Well, if you equate that with, say, TD Bank getting about the same amount, you know, for jobs, supposed jobs, you know, we feel that, you know, this is something that would benefit all of small businesses, not just one certain sector or one certain business, but everybody could benefit from it. So that will be included in our platform going forward. In the next election is the elimination of the small business tax, which again puts more money in small businesses' pockets to reinvest in their own business. But I think on another angle, there's also the opportunity with the elimination of small business taxes to market New Brunswick to the rest of Canada and the rest of the world as a place to do business. And I do believe that taxes in New Brunswick are prohibitive to growth and you know, an effective economy and a growing economy. And taxes is something we're very strong on reducing and seeing that money reinvested into the local economy. So the elimination of the small business tax would be one of the key elements of our platform moving forward. We also want to see skills and training geared more towards forecasted need in the private sector. And I know the government here not too long ago released a TAD program in which, you know, students with a threshold of income in the household could receive free tuition. You know, and the concept, of course, is good. I certainly wouldn't argue the concept. Our only approach to that is the fiscal side of it for the province, but just as importantly is, you know, the free tuition that's offered and the courses that are taken from that free tuition, how does it benefit the private sector in New Brunswick? Because if government is going to grow the economy, they can only do it through the private sector. And we feel it's important that, you know, the courses that are offered or the skills and training that is offered is done in a way that, you know, they can almost, you know, try to forecast the need of the private sector and business and what needs are going to be down the road, 2-3 years down the road, to make sure those courses you know, are offered for those that need it in the business world. We also want to see the elimination of the double tax. And what makes New Brunswick so unique, you know, New Brunswick's unique in many good ways. Things that we're proud of, but unfortunately New Brunswick is unique in some not so good ways, and the double tax is one of them. Now I know different jurisdictions may, you know, have different taxing complexities to how they tax business, how they tax their citizens, but New Brunswick specifically with the double tax puts us at a disadvantage really across the country and across the globe. And it's our strong belief that the elimination of the double tax would allow much more money to be reinvested in business and put more money in people's pockets that can be spent in the local economy here at home. So the elimination of the double tax would help developers, it would help business owners that obviously operate their businesses out of property. We also want to see that with the elimination of the double tax, that tenants can benefit from that. So people that rent, you know, we would freeze rental rates for possibly 2 to 3 years to make sure that the benefits of the elimination of double tax trickles down to tenants, that they can have some of the benefit from that as well. We also want to see some changes in how New Brunswick is regulated. Some of the regulations that we all face as businesses, or you know, whether you're trying to start up or whether you're currently in business and you've been here for a while, is you know, the amount of regulation that goes along with that. And in 2016, the provincial government did a good thing. They had enacted and brought forth Bill, I believe it was 15, and it was the Regulatory Accountability and Reporting Act. The idea behind it was the realization that over-regulation stifles growth and it hinders growth for businesses. So the question behind it was, how do we, as a province, lower the amount of regulations or get rid of unnecessary regulations, but at the same time make sure that, you know, obviously business practices are done accordingly, environment, health and safety, and consumers are protected. And that's always a trick. I mean, that's certainly not an easy fix and not an easy solution, but it is an important one. So the government did enact the bill. It went to royal assent, I believe, in 2016. And there was a part of this that I want to share this morning that I guess it's one thing to pass a bill that is good. It's another thing to actually follow through on that bill and enact it on a regular basis, which is what we're failing to see. So in the bill in section 4.1 it says, "Honor before June 30th of each year, the minister shall make available to the public an annual report with respect to the work of the joint office." Now the joint office would include the Office of Regulatory and Service Effectiveness, which is a joint office between New Brunswick and works with Nova Scotia and PEI. So it's kind of a Atlantic-based idea or concept on reporting regulations and changes to regulations and what new regulations are coming in, what ones have been withdrawn, and where the progress is improving regulation, reducing regulatory burden, and the goals and the objectives of the joint office for the coming year. We've yet to see that. So although the bill's been passed, there hasn't been any real public accounts of where that's at, what the joint office is doing, how are they reducing regulations, what regulations have they reduced, if any. Because all of us know, I mean, in business, you know, it's first of all finding out what regulations exist, how do I comply with the regulations, the permit process, you know, whether you're at Service New Brunswick trying to fill out the forms, trying to make sure you fill out the forms correctly. And then on top of that, which can be time consuming, it's the fact that there's a cost associated with it. So if you need permits or you need licensing, you know, there's a cost factor with that. I was talking to a small bakery in rural New Brunswick here towards Harvey, and she was saying like something as simple as, you know, in their bakery, during the winter months, it's the real slow season. So in the spring and summers when business picks up. However, you know, being a small business, you know, kind of a family-owned business, she said, I have to pay out all of these licenses and fees in the spring at the time when we just, you know, struggle, you know, with our business at that time of year. She said, I don't mind paying it, and I understand the regulations involved in it, but it would be beneficial to them if they could pay that in the fall as opposed to the spring. So it kind of got the wheels turning in my head, so, you know, is that possible? Is that something we could do to accommodate some businesses that would say, look, I'd rather pay for the licensing and permits at a different time of the year, that may help them, you know, spread out the wealth a little bit and help them manage their finances and give them a little benefit. So I do think there's things that we can do as a government or as a province, you know, to make regulation something businesses can swallow. So we do want to see more movement on that bill. We want to see that bill actually come into fruition in day-to-day practice, where the public can see what work and what progress is being done on that. I do believe that, you know, again, many issues that businesses are facing. You know, you talk about high taxes. I know workers' compensation rates is a big issue for businesses, especially if you're a small and medium-sized business trying to struggle with the high premiums that have to be paid out. I know minimum wage is a big issue. You know, we certainly understand the struggle that you know, people that have to work minimum wage jobs have in their day-to-day life, but we also understand businesses struggle when you increase minimum wage, especially as they did in Ontario, to $15 an hour, it really puts a strain on the business community. And obviously at times it can be counterproductive, because a small business that has 10 employees, if you increase the minimum wage to that extent, they go from 10 employees maybe to 7, and the 7 employees are doing the work of the 3 that they had to lay off because they can't keep them all on at that rate of pay. So there has to be that constant balance between the needs of the people and making sure that it's fair for the workers, but at the same time that businesses can make a go of it as well. And so there's lots of challenges that the business community faces in New Brunswick, challenges that again is unique to this province, and I think they're challenges that we can overcome. I believe that New Brunswick is strategically located geographically, I think to maybe tap into more European markets, increase trade to the US, as well as to the rest of Canada. As a party in the past, we've supported endeavors like the pipeline, and we're disappointed to see that did not proceed. We're hearing the market had a play in that, possible environmental issues, and certain provinces blocking its progress. So, we certainly supported the pipeline. We support development of natural resources, so long as it's done with private property owner rights in mind, environmental mitigation as much as possible, and that the province gets good royalties. Because we want to see New Brunswick grow, and the best way to grow it is through the private sector, small and medium-sized business, and of course industry as well. So as we go forward, we are going to be developing our platform. The economy will be a key factor in that, as well as fiscal responsibility within government. We want to see government spend the money wisely. As a province, with the debt that we face, over $14 billion, with a deficit that we've accumulated every year for over a decade, nobody would operate their house in the same way the province operates, or the government operates the province. You just wouldn't do it. And it's a serious issue. And unless we figure out how to properly manage the books where we have them now, but more importantly, how do we grow the economy? And I'm a firm believer that a growing, thriving economy is one in which the private sector takes the lead. And that's why we don't favor, and we are opposed to this type of corporate welfare mentality that we have in New Brunswick, where we give millions of dollars oftentimes to big corporations to come in to set up jobs. We have no data, we have no research that follows up on that handout of money. We all see the front page of the paper where a minister or the government will come and say, we're creating 350 jobs at this call center or that venue, and we're investing $8.8 million, and it all looks good on the front page of the paper. But 3, 4, 5 years down the road, the question has to be asked, how many of those 350 jobs actually came to fruition? And furthermore, how many of those jobs remained at the 3, 4, 5 year mark? What investment did the taxpayers in New Brunswick get out of that? And look, I believe that if there's certain areas that works, then so be it. But that's why I believe as well the Auditor General should have more financing. She should have a bigger budget to be able to investigate these things, so that we know we can have the hard data to show this works and this doesn't. So the Auditor General certainly needs more support, and that's something that you'll see in our platform as well as we move into the election. So that's a few of the ideas that we're looking at. I know it's brief, but again, we are still in the process of developing our platform, and in that we've met with the Fredericton Chamber of Commerce here. We've met with the CFIB to get ideas that everybody is facing in the business world, and to try to find ways not just to tweak the system, but to really give the system an overhaul that, again, it gets back to a private sector driven economy rather than the government trying to create jobs through corporate handouts. We want to get back to a province where the private sector takes the lead on that. So at this time, I'll open it up to questions. If anybody has any questions or comments, I don't know what the process, Megan, is, but...
Yeah, we can just do an open Q&A, so
sure.
If anyone's got any questions.
Do you want me to stand for this?
Oh, it's up, yeah,
okay.
Sure. That's probably
so my name is Sam Titus. I'm with New Brunswick Student Alliance. Early in your talk, you had just made some comments about the free tuition program and the TAB program. And I was just wondering if you could just clarify your stance on that a little bit, about maybe your thoughts on allowing on. It seemed like you were indicating that you only thought that students in certain fields of study that line up more directly with certain labor market sectors should be receiving this money. And I just wanted some clarity on that.
Yep. We're going to define that completely in our platform going forward. What I can only tell you at this point is we want to make sure that if tuition is freely given to students in New Brunswick based on a certain threshold, that it not only benefits the students, but it benefits the taxpayers of the province. Our concern is is we're graduating people from New Brunswick that are moving to Saskatchewan, Alberta, other parts of the country and the world, and New Brunswickers aren't seeing the benefit here. So we want to make sure that it's a win-win on both sides. Like, frankly, when you look at the previous government's role in the tuition tax credit, we like that. That to us made sense because, you know, you had the opportunity, and there's lots of students that have graduated here today that are now losing that tax credit, and we've even heard, you know, a few cases where that was the straw that made them pack up and leave. So we want to make sure that that tax credit is reintroduced, and so that at the end of the day, graduates that stay and work in New Brunswick can get their tuition back through that tax credit, and the province of New Brunswick would benefit as a result.
Can I ask a follow-up question on that?
Sure.
So the New Brunswick Student Alliance was one of the groups that played quite an integral role in the removal of the tax credit. The data that we had actually showed that that program cost more money than the free tuition program does now and impacted fewer students. I guess that's not really a follow-up question, but just a follow-up to that as well. So,
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Well, and luck.
Oh, sorry.
Good morning, Kris.
Good morning.
CEO Larry Shaw from Ignite Fredericton. There's this debate that happens quite often around economic development, specifically around an urban and rural communication. And what we often see is trying to sort of react to both of those situations, and we get in a situation that really we end up in a race to mediocrity in terms of investment and strategies. What would be your position in terms of urban economic development and rural economic development? How would you foster both those at the same time?
Yeah, good question, and there's certainly no easy solutions to that, of course. One thing that I'm hearing a lot of from rural business owners is, you know, things like high-speed internet access. You know, we've gotten calls from people that say, look, I'm trying to operate a business here. Either, you know, the big telecom companies don't offer high-speed internet to these certain areas, and the ones that do just isn't sufficient for their business needs. So, and I know the province has worked on that over the past to try to, you know, get more high-speed internet, greater speeds and more accessibility to rural areas. I think that's something that needs more work. I think it's something that we need to look more towards. You know, taxes again play a big part. I think if we can lower the taxes that businesses are paying, whether it's the double tax or the small business tax, I think if we can lower the regulations and the fees associated with those regulations, that it wouldn't necessarily be a rural urban policy, but it'd be a New Brunswick policy that everybody could benefit from. You know, in terms of rural and urban businesses, I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, it is a complex issue. We're certainly open to ideas. If there's things that we could do as a political party or put in our platform to help rural areas and maybe strengthen urban areas at the same time, we'd certainly look at it for sure.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Anthony, and I work with the Brunswick Medical Society. We represent all the physicians in New Brunswick. Healthcare didn't get mentioned this morning, but that just means there's an opportunity for us to give you some great ideas on what you should say.
We're wide open.
Platform. From our perspective, primary care is a big concern, so that's how people access their family physician. And we've done some new work with the province and other partners on how to enhance access to family doctors in New Brunswick, and we want to continue to expand and grow that. One of the ideas we have is, and you're going to hear about it from us, is enhanced access in emergency rooms. We know that people are going to emergency rooms and waiting long periods of time when they can't get access to their family doctor. And if there was a quick care access point in an emergency room that dealt with the less complicated issues that people present at emergency rooms with, not the broken leg or car accident, but your child is ill and you're not sure what to do. If you had that point of access in the emergency room, that could actually save a lot of time and effort for patients and reduce the burden on the hardworking people in our emergency rooms in the province. So that's one idea. The second is that we have about 75 positions for specialists in the province that are unfilled, and we would like all parties to commit to filling every one of those specialist positions. We have one of the longest wait times in the country for a number of specialist services in our province. And we think just filling the vacancies we have today would make a big difference in putting a dent in those wait lists. So those are two ideas that we're going to meet with you about, and I'll even give you some fancy wording to help you with your platform development if you like.
Hey, thank you very much. We certainly look forward to that. And look, there's no question, you know, healthcare is going to be a big issue next election. I'm convinced of that. One thing we have tackled and we've been really fighting for is part of healthcare is ambulance wait times, especially in rural areas. Ambulance New Brunswick, you know, I think needs a lot of work in that area. Concerning healthcare in general, it's funny because I was speaking with a doctor yesterday, and he had mentioned about, you know, the cost, and he didn't know the exact figures, but last estimate that he had received was, you know, a family doctor visit averages about $40, I think he said. And whereas if the same patient goes into an emergency room care, it averages around 300, something along those lines. You'd probably know better than me, of course, the exact figures. But there's a huge gap just in terms of the cost. And I agree wholeheartedly. And I guess what we are looking for as well as a political party is to get the ideas is how do we change that? How do we make it so that, you know, the emergency room is used for emergencies and that, you know, other, you know, problems are geared more towards your family doctor. Billing numbers, we're hearing a lot of issue with that, as well as there's another, I can't remember what it's called, but it's the policy where a doctor, if a doctor is out of office for less than 3 days, that it can't be refilled by another physician during that time. That has to be over 3 days. So again, people that, you know, maybe their family doctor is away for 3 days, rather than close the clinic down, you know, had the opportunity for another physician to come in and fill that during those 3 days. Wide open for ideas. I think there's lots to be done. I mean, we all know healthcare is, again, one of the more complex issues that we face. But even things, you know, they talk about health and wellness. You know, what if we stop charging tax on bicycles? You know, to give people maybe a little incentive to go biking a little bit more. I mean, whatever it takes, little things to promote wellness first, but to make sure that primary care is available, you know, in a reasonable manner as well when they do need it, people do need it. Thank you.
Got any more questions? Sure, Janet.
Sorry. I have a question regarding immigration. So I didn't hear you mention immigration, and we all know that there's a huge concern. First of all, my name is Janet Moser. I'm with the Fredericton Chamber and with the Fredericton Immigrant Business Center. So we have a declining population in New Brunswick. We know that. We're in a critical situation in terms of growing our economy and growing our population. How do you see immigration from your perspective, from your party's platform?
There's no question. I mean, I think the data is quite strong out there that immigration is needed in New Brunswick. You know, we certainly support that. What we want to see, first and foremost, is to try to stop the outflow of, you know, young people, that especially skilled workers that are leaving the province. You know, how do we create opportunity here that they don't have to go to the west to find gainful employment? That's our first strategy, but I think coupled with that certainly is immigration. And there's no question you have to have skilled workers, foreign workers come in and be a part of New Brunswick as well. So, you know, we certainly support the immigration idea and the concept, and making it, you know, somewhat easier for skilled immigrants to come in and fill some of the labor shortages that are here. You know, meeting with the Chamber of Commerce a while back, meeting with the CFIB, and looking at the information that's out there, it's interesting how New Brunswick, you know, has. I talked to many of you, and you talk about, you know, how there's a labor shortage. You know, you post a job and it doesn't get filled. On the flip side, you see high unemployment rates, and you see people that you know, don't have work. So at some point there has to be a bridge built between those two things to make sure that people that are not working can find gainful employment, and businesses that are struggling to find those workers, and mostly it's skilled workers, of course, but to get the skills and training needed in there to meet the needs of the private sector. And that's why, again, it goes back to, when we discussed about education, that if government can find a way to forecast, at least estimate the forecast of what is going to be needed in the private sector down the road to make sure that our people are staying here, and then making sure that immigrants have the opportunity to be here as well. Thank you.
Hi, Duncan Matheson. I have a question. I'm wondering what might be in your platform. You were talking earlier about, just a few minutes ago, about how it's not easy to fix the issues with rural New Brunswick. One of the bigger issues with rural New Brunswick speaks to the Crown Lands and Forests Act, where private woodlot owners are no longer in a level playing field because of changes made both by the McKenna government and after that by the Albury governments, both parties in it, where forestry companies are pretty much in charge now of Crown land. And both the Auditor General has raised issues about this, and a study done by that shows that we should, as a province, be doing a whole lot better for our people, but because of the mismanagement of the Crown lands, we're not. Is there going to be anything in your platform that addresses that? Because rural New Brunswick is, there's 40,000 private woodlot owners around the province. They're everywhere.
Yeah, forestry is going to be one of the main parts of our platform. We do have most of that completed now, and it will be released in our platform. Again, I don't want to let the cat out of the bag on a lot of this stuff because we are still in the development process of our platform. But we do take issue. The previous government, with the increase to Crown land being available, again, reduction in buffer zones, private woodlot owners not getting a fair shake. I mean, I talked to private woodlot owners today that say, the prices they're getting is sometimes, in some cases, even less than they were getting 30 years ago. So, I mean, it hasn't even keeping up with any type of inflation. So there certainly has to be a different way that we manage our forests specifically, but natural resources as a whole. I'd like to see greater royalties. I mean, when we are, as a province, paying out more money to have wood harvested off Crown land than what we're receiving, there's obviously a major issue there. We should be benefiting from industry, removing lumber off Crown land, not paying to have them do it. In terms, when you take the whole scope of management and everything with that, it costs us. And I know the argument's there that it saves jobs, but the question is, well, can we have more jobs if we do this differently? Obviously, what we're doing now is not working. So, in our forestry policy, I think we'll tackle that, and it will be forthcoming.
Any more questions?
John Schulbeck from Telegraph Journal.
Hi, John.
So the platform you've outlined is basically a small C conservative platform, and it's very similar to the one you had last election. You didn't win any seats last election, which will make people wonder, well, why don't you join the Progressive Conservatives? Why park your vote with People's Alliance if you don't have a good chance of forming government? Well, there's another conservative party out there that could.
Well, I think once our platform is fully developed, John, I think you'll see that it's going to have a blend. There's going to be some conservative policies in there. There's going to be some liberal policies in there, and that's what we pride ourselves on, is to try to make things work that have some reason attached to it, and that can tackle some of the tough issues. Concerning folding up and going to the Conservative Party, well, look, the fact of the matter is, New Brunswick is in the state it's in because of the two-party system. I mean, there's only been two parties that have governed this province for decades. So, our $14 billion debt, our deficits, which governments have run every year, is red and blue. Joining those two parties fixes nothing. And in terms of our opportunity to win a majority government, I mean, look, we work to get as many candidates as we can, and to get the policies out to the average New Brunswicker so that they can see what we are saying. Our goal is obviously to form government, But if we fall short of that, we also have a strategy in terms of a minority government. I think a minority government would be a huge benefit to the province. It makes government negotiate, the parties negotiate within government. It holds governments accountable, whether it's red or blue. And it gives the opportunity for new ideas and a fresh vision to be brought in New Brunswick rather than the stale old thinking of the two parties.
Jason Ferris, Tourism Industry Association of New Brunswick. Just wondering, is your party in support of tying these efforts on the Destination Marketing Fund, an initiative which industry has confirmed time and time again that is needed in order to strengthen New Brunswick's tourism industry by providing additional funds to promote our province's unique products?
So you said it was a destination fund?
Destination Marketing Fund.
I'm unaware of that, I'll be honest. But certainly something with, so you're saying it ties, if you don't mind, just a brief of how it works?
Essentially, as tourists travel to their destination, they check into their motel, there's a small fee attached to that, which would go toward the promotion of services. I believe most, if not all, other provinces are already implementing this initiative, and New Brunswick is losing so much potential because of our not going ahead with this.
Right. So a certain fee that would go on that would be used to market tourism in New Brunswick. That's the general concept. Yeah. Yeah. No, something where, again, I'm somewhat in the dark on it, but something that we certainly look at. I mean, tourism, no question, should be a big thing in New Brunswick. I mean, we have some great areas. I always say, growing up in the Grand Lake area, that Grand Lake itself is underutilized. You know, we have this beautiful freshwater lake, and yet we have a provincial campground that you know, several years ago closed up, was given to the private business owner, you know, and still struggling. So, you know, look, I agree. I think if there's a way that we can increase tourism, and I think we can do that by, you know, better marketing what we have. You know, I always think of someone living in downtown Toronto on the 21st floor, you know, what they would give to come here and spend a couple weeks if we marketed ourselves in such a way that showed, you know, the potential we have and all that we offer here, you know, whether it's the Bay of Fundy or some of the smaller communities. I'm always sad to see the loss of covered bridges, you know, because I think, you know, they add a certain character to the province that people enjoy when they come. So, yeah, the Destination Marketing Fund is something, I'm glad you brought that up. We'll certainly look into that. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Megan.